Welcome to the Fresh and Fired Up podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Marshall, here with my co-host, Haley Pindle, the wild online fitness and nutrition coach.
Hi.
Or women's health coach. Which do you prefer?
I mean, I kind of flip-flop between the two. It depends on who I'm talking to.
It depends on which keywords are trending.
Yeah, exactly. It depends on who I'm trying to target at that given time.
Yeah. You guys are amazing. We love and appreciate you all. And we are pumped that you are here. Let's get fired up.
Let's get fired up. So, Emily, you must be fired up. Tell us about your journey back home. So, if you guys didn't know, Emily and I were just at a trade show. I was going to say wild
wellness show. The women's wellness show.
Oh my gosh. The wellness show in Vancouver. And Emily came to visit me. I was so stoked. It was so much fun.
Yes.
But the snow.
And we met for the first time in person, which a lot of people are surprised because I feel like people who listen to our show, well, you guys who listen to our show, just feel like it feels like we've known each other forever.
Yeah.
And that we're sisters, apparently.
Justin said that. He's like, you guys look so alike. I'm like, I know, white girls with brown hair.
You've got a great smile.
Oh yeah, we both do. We've got show-stopping smiles. But it was funny actually because on Thursday we went and did a photo shoot for the podcast. So you guys best believe we got some professional photos coming at you for our Instagram posts.
Yeah, and stay tuned because we have some funny ones in there.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun. But it was super funny because we were chatting about this. Is like that was our first ever time meeting. And I gotta say, it was a little bit like, oh my gosh, who is this? I've never, like, what's going on? But the first
you thought I was going to be taller than I am?
Apparently. I did. I thought you'd be taller. And then the first day of the show, it was like, okay, I know this woman. I've known her all my life. It's all good. I can share all my deepest, darkest secrets with you.
I know. Well, and I was like, surprised that you're a little bit more of an ambivert than I thought. Like you have this mix of introvert, extrovert, whereas sometimes when we're on media, you would appear to be like all extrovert.
Yeah,
but you have grown into that. Tell me about how you've grown into that because
we were chatting about that too because I was telling Emily how horrible I've been at like public speaking. Now I'm on podcasts and I'm making a fool of myself on the internet. But it's actually really funny because I remember when I actually got this really limiting belief that I was bad at sales, I was bad at talking, I was bad at public speaking. And it was in grade 12, I think. We were doing a presentation in school about a book. And I was in this group and it was my turn to chat about whatever I learned from this book. And I stopped like mid-sentence, my brain blanked. I stopped for talking for like 10 seconds and then my partner had to save me. And then I got pity marks for it. I got perfect on it because my teacher was like, oh, this poor girl. But ever since then, I'm like, I'm bad at public speaking. I cannot do this. Please refrain from asking me any questions. But now I feel like I've grown a lot from that and kind of just stepped out of my comfort zone. And it's definitely a skill, right? When you kind of adopt that mindset of things that you're bad at are just a skill you haven't learned yet, it just allows you to be bad at it at the start and then you can progress forward from there. But yeah, no, that was a very long journey for me.
Well, and I feel like it's those moments where you felt shame, right? Like whether the person meant to make you feel like they probably didn't intend to make you feel that way, or the moment wasn't meant to make you feel that way. But you look back and you're like, I feel ashamed of this moment or embarrassed, I guess. Yeah. And it sticks in your mind. And then if you let yourself dwell on that story, that narrative grows. And it's interesting because we talked about that on the weekend when we were talking about, okay, let's just go to this show. We have lots to learn. We get to meet lots of people. Like it's such a learning experience. And each show that I've done is, and when I say show, I mean like the trade show. It was the wellness show this time. I've done women's shows in different cities and stuff. And I find every time you meet a different crowd, there's a different energy. The vibe of the city is different. And it's figuring out, okay, how do I connect with these people? Like, what are they wearing? What's their eye contact? And, just the different nuances. It's really like studying people. And it's not to be manipulative, but it's to really connect with them how they want to be connected. And so when you said that, you were kind of a little bit like, yeah, I've never been great at sales, or I don't love this scenario where I'm branching out and meeting people over and over again all day. I'd rather be, what did you say? I'd rather be in my house cleaning or like at my computer crunching my numbers.
Oh yeah, I definitely would. I'm definitely more of someone who likes to work in silence by myself. And I'm also like that for like if I'm going to fail, I'd rather fail alone and not have everyone else see
Right.
me fail. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I feel like that's just like a type A kind of perfectionist kind of person where it's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm the weakest person in the world if someone sees me fail," which is not at all
Right.
true. And kind of piggybacking on what you said too, like no one ever remembered that story, but it's lived in my brain rent free for it, since it happened, right? But no one in the class, my teacher, if I tried to bring it up, it's like, what are you talking about? No one
Yeah.
remembers it.
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny. Maybe your siblings do. No, I'm kidding. I
He wasn't
bring
even
that
there.
I know. I'm bringing that up because my sister Jess, who listens to all these episodes, by the way, so she's going to
Hi,
hear this and then
Jess.
she's going to laugh and then she's going to send me a message about it later where we were talking about moments that are just hilarious to reflect on. She was like, I love Jess. She's just like, I'm so proud of you. You're doing all these podcasts and you're on social media and you're doing your business. And she's like, remember back in the day when you had the presentation in university and you like mispronounced. So I did two that were pretty bad, like big university presentations that I was doing this whole because I did a biology degree. I have so many degrees. I did a biology degree and a kinesiology degree, and then I did my doctorate in chiropractic. Well, within my biology degree, I had this presentation in our lab and I was trying to talk about these invasive species and blah, blah, blah. And I pronounced Macedonia, like macadamia nut.
I love that.
And then I had another one where it was the name Jeff. Have you ever seen the name Jeff
Like
spelt like
Geoff?
yes,
Yeah.
Geo? And I was like, I'm pronouncing this person's name, and I'm like Geoff, and I was like,
Geoff.
oh my gosh. So my sister Jess just brought this up to me the other day, and it was the best compliment. She's like, you didn't even care, you just kept going, you corrected yourself, you laughed it off. And I'm like, I'm very thankful. I've kind of always had this way of being where I do the stupidest things or I say something totally wrong, but I just don't really care. Like I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
So and I'm super thankful because I've had many people be like, oh, thank you for being so kind of real and natural and just off the cuff. Cause I think it gives other people permission to be able to step into something they're afraid of and be like, listen, we all do idiotic things sometimes. We're people. And if you laugh about it and have fun with it, I mean, who cares?
Yeah.
Nobody, like you said, nobody really actually cares that much.
Yeah.
And if they are that nitpicky with you, then they're not the people you want to be around anyways.
Not at all. Like no one's ever going to remember the silly things that you do, and I feel like being the example for people. I know you mentioned this as well in another episode where you we were talking about movement in the airport and you were just like the
Yeah.
trendsetter of just stretching in the airport, even though like people might think you're weird, but just being the example for people and like
Yeah.
having them follow suit is so much
Right.
better than like you being like, oh, you just have to do it. Like, obviously easier said than done, but just
Right. But be
seeing
okay.
it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like that's something I love doing in life, if
Yeah.
possible, is like because I think people want to be courageous. I think we all want to have that like moment of courage where we're like, oh, I really want to go up and ask the question, or I really want to go, you're a fan of some celebrity and you're like, I really want to go get in the line and say hi or get an autograph, like whatever. But you're afraid. People are afraid to do things. So I love being that friend that's just like, I'll go with you, or like, yeah, I'll stand up first. You can stand up. We'll go do it. Like, let's go get up on the stage. And I love that, right? Because I think once people get through those moments, if you get past that fear point, then you have some of the best experiences of your life.
You are so right. And that's what I feel like everyone gets stuck, where they let their fear dictate their actions afterwards, where you don't really want to be rid of fear. It's you just want to have that courageous moment. And I don't know if you can relate to this, but you know that like one moment where it's like you kind of let your guard down and the fear kind of goes down and you're like, I'm going to do it anyways. You being that for people is so awesome. I flippin' love that.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Oh,
no, I wish you lived near me because I would get you to do me I mean, get you to do things
do
with me.
that for me. Here. See, this is the moment we
this
get.
is this is another one of these moments where I'm gonna be like, oh, I'm not a good public speaker. I also did that in grade 7. Oh my gosh, I have a really good story too, where I was saying really inappropriate things by accident. So I don't know what project this was. I think it was like about me kind of thing, and you had to present it. Go figure, presenting more things. And I was reading it, and I spelt thing wrong, and I spelt it like with a O, and I said that, and I was like, "Oops."
Oops.
At that point, I just kept going like you did, but yeah, no, that
That's
was very
amazing.
embarrassing as well. In a grade 7 class, my teacher looks at me like, "What did you just say?" Like,
Well, it's the art of when you put your foot in your mouth, it's like developing the situational fluency. Okay, if our team at Valley Chiropractic, if any of them are listening to this, and then John will probably listen, they're gonna laugh because they're like, that's your favorite term. It's like situational fluency. It's like, can you like be fluid in these moments with your behaviors, with your actions, with your words? And it's I think there's always a fine line is you don't want to be a chameleon. You're not just like
yeah,
people pleasing and bending to people, but I'm more when I say situational fluency, it's like increasing that adaptability, or you've used the term being flexible, right? In your mind. I think in your mindset is most of it. But okay, I was thinking about another point when you said when you get that feeling of fear and you feel it rising up in you. I'm going to give this example. So there's this skill called a flyaway in gymnastics, and it's when you're on the high bar, you just swing down and you do this long swing, and then you flip backward, like you let go of the bar backwards and you flip around and you land. So you're essentially doing a backflip off the bar. The scary part about that skill is you're pulling back towards the bar. So this an innate fear for most gymnasts when you're learning this skill that you're going to come back and like smash your feet off the bar, basically.
I'd have
And
that fear.
honestly, even if you do, it doesn't hurt that much. But when you're a young gymnast, you're like, it's just this very real fear, right? And so you really, most gymnasts that I've coached have to overcome that to get that skill. And then that is a gateway skill into once you can just do the simple backflip, then you can do a layout, then you can add twist, then you can add double backs. Like you have to get past that first one. And then almost like everything else after that becomes easier because it's like
Yeah,
the
the
baseline, right?
domino.
Yeah, exactly. So it's interesting because the other day, I just remember taking so long as a young kid to get that skill because of that fear feeling. And something that one of my coaches back in the day did a really good job at helping us train this feeling of fear to excitement. So it's like that butterfly feeling. You can perceive it as fear or anxiety, or you can train your brain to perceive it as like a rush of excitement and almost like an adventure type feeling. Like if you're going to jump off a cliff into water, like, you know, like a fun summer scenario where you're like, should I go? Like, and then you
Yeah.
just do it. And it's
Yeah.
kind of like that feeling of adventure. And so every time I feel that fear feeling now, I try to like just take a breath and picture the adventure. And so I had a moment the other day when I was trying to explain this to a young gymnast, and she was kind of getting upset. And I was like, "Listen, I'll show you. I'll show you how to do it, okay?" And I get up on the high bar, and I'm like, "I haven't done this skill in like 14 years." I'm like, "I don't even know if I can still do it." So of course I'm up there, and I'm like, I'm kind of scared. Like I start to feel that feeling, and I just did that exact thing. I took a breath, kind of like let it drop into my stomach, and I'm just like feel the moment. Like I kind of almost do this like just feel the moment, and I don't hesitate. I just went, and it's kind of like this trusting your body to do what it knows how to do. And I just kind of went around. Oh, I'm hitting my mic. One around and landed, and was like, yeah, and that's how you do it.
I've done this my whole life. I'm a professional.
Right. But when you don't, even when, I guess the point is, even when you've done something a lot, if it's one of those things that used to be a fear for you and you haven't done it in a while, I felt those exact same feelings all over again. So sometimes if you're thinking, okay, if you've always felt anxious about walking into a gym to work out because people are looking at you or whatever it is, you might find that that's a feeling that you get over and over again, right? It's like sometimes these are getting over a fear one time. Sometimes this is something that's so ingrained in your neuroscaffolding that this is why people say, well, they'll have social anxiety, right? Because almost every new social setting is like, here we go again. Feel those feelings rising. And it's not the easiest thing, or actually I don't think you can fully stop those feelings or thoughts. It's more about replacing them or rewiring them and reframing them in a way that allows you to move forward past
Yeah,
them.
I agree with that. And I also have been practicing stuff with myself and my clients. You've probably seen it on Instagram, but exposure therapy and just exposing yourself
Yeah.
more to situations that make you uncomfortable, because it's worked so much for myself, not only in like my sales and becoming a bit better of a public speaker and just speaking kind of my mind, but also for like wearing shorts in the gym. I don't want to wear shorts, especially in the wintertime. My legs are not shaved. Everyone's looking at me and I hate that there's cellulite on my legs.
Right.
Right. And it wasn't even a fact of getting rid of the cellulite or getting rid of the fat on my legs. It's never really about that. It's about your kind of relationship towards it, and just being more comfortable wearing shorts and just doing it over and over again. I'm like, wow, no one's looking at me. I'm proving to myself that it doesn't actually matter. And in the grand scheme of things, like, if no one else cares, why am I caring? Because the moment that I stop caring about this, the world stops caring about this. So just
Yeah.
like exposing yourself to the situations that make you uncomfortable is the only way through them.
Yep. Well, it was interesting when we were at the hotel. Okay, so it made me think of this when we were talking about shorts, and now I'm going to bring it into like bathing suits. Okay, so we were at the hotel when okay, so quick backstory is we're in Vancouver. We have the trade show over the weekend. My daughters and I flew in a few days early, so it was last Wednesday. I'm not sure if this will make sense with the timing when this podcast is coming out, but basically it was a Wednesday, and we were supposed to fly back on Monday morning, and then we had 2 days of flight cancellation. So we didn't end up getting home till like Wednesday night instead. Well, we had to stay the 2 extra nights in a hotel. So we got a hotel by the airport, and it had, my daughters were jazzed because it had a swimming pool and hot tub and a big slide that actually went outside the hotel and then back in.
Which hotel is this?
I don't know, the Sandman Signature Hotel.
Oh, Sandman.
Yeah, it was actually,
Okay.
the beds were so much comfier than our Airbnb. Our Airbnb was so crappy.
Airbnb in Vancouver, a studio
Oh,
for, yeah.
it was awful. But anyway, so the hotel was like so luxurious. And so we're in the one night, the pool was pretty quiet and we had swam for like 2 hours. We had an absolute blast. We were laughing our heads off and being silly. And it was fun. Good memories. But then this influx of women come in. They're probably like 18 to 20-year-olds. And there's like 20 of them. And they're all in their bathing suits and they're all just like having a blast. And as they're coming in, I'm the one girl as she's walking by, I'm like, are you guys like a team or something? Because all of a sudden there's like a ton of you. She's like, yeah, we're like women's hockey team. And so it was cool because I was talking to my girls about it. I'm like, did you see how they were all just like in their bathing suits, having fun? Like, couldn't care if anyone else was around or watching them. I think there was a security in the sense of like they were a team, but they just seemed like a really good cultured team. And when you're looking at them, I'm like, these are all athletes. Some of them were skinnier, some of them were thicker. So, like, it didn't matter. Like, they were all different body types, but they're all like on the same team, playing the same sport. They were exuding confidence. And I was just like, how cool is this? And so it
Yeah.
was a good discussion afterwards with my daughters to be like, isn't it cool to see a bunch of women together just having fun, not thinking about, oh, what is this person thinking of me, or is this person looking at me, or does my body have to be the topic of discussion? I guess we're kind of discussing it now, but do you know what I mean?
Totally. And I relate a lot to that because I was in a hockey team.
Right.
And what I love about specifically like hockey and team sports that aren't super body focused, I feel like this is very different for like gymnastics or
Yes.
ballet or dance and things like that. When there is an emphasis on your body and weight, or you have to make a certain weight. But I
Yes.
absolutely loved that you could show up as whatever body type that you were. And as long as your performance was really good, like if you had the skill, if you had the dedication and the hard work, that's what determined if you made the team, not
Right.
if your body looked a certain way. And I feel like that kind of culture of a team is such a blessing to be a part of. And I was super glad to be a part of one of them. But yeah, there is so much strength in numbers, and just being a part of that is so valuable.
So then when did I find that curious, because when did that shift for you? Because you obviously went through the journey of your eating disorder. And I know you talked about like comments that came up even within your family that weren't intentional, obviously, but how it sat with you. But then you were more of a team sport girl. You did hockey and something else,
Lacrosse.
or
Yep.
lacrosse. Yeah.
Yep.
So then when did that start to change for you?
It wasn't anyone else's kind of thing. It wasn't a part of the team sport. It wasn't anything due to like that. It was me trying to be this perfect epitome of a person.
Mm,
And I took it too far, because like when I started to see progress, I was like, oh, how far can I take this? And then
right.
eventually those habits turned into not super healthy, and I was like pacing in my room at night just to hit my 10K steps, which,
Right.
it just got really eccentric, and it wasn't part of the team or anything anyone said. It was just me taking it to a bit too much of an extreme, because I wanted to be perfect and I wanted to look a certain way. And then it was just a slippery slope from there, where I got into these habits and it was really hard to break, because there's a really big emphasis, obviously, for women on their bodies. And I was getting all of these compliments like, oh, you look amazing. I wish I
Mm,
could be like you. I wish I could look like you, all of this stuff. And no one really realizes the price you pay for being super lean until you get super lean. And then
yeah.
you're like, but then you have all of these compliments coming in, and it's like, well, should I, like, do I need to gain weight? Because this is what everyone wants to be. So the society thing plays a role in it. But it definitely was more of me being a perfect person and then getting stuck in that kind of quote unquote perfect body. And then the external validation was one of the hardest things to give up. But once I did give it up, freedom happened. So definitely was a bit of a journey, but it didn't really have anything to do with like my sport community. That was
Right.
always a very positive thing.
That's good. Well, excuse me. It's interesting you say that, because I used to get that a lot. Like the whole, like, whoa, those arms, girl. Like I always get arms and butt.
Heck yeah.
Classic. But it's funny because I've had phases, like even right now, I'm not as cut through my arms as I was. And then you stop getting those types of compliments,
Mhm.
right? And I find seasonally, like my arms, I know already will start to cut. I will start to cut more into the spring and summer, and not even intentionally. I just find the way we have such long, dark days here in the north, and then we start to get sunlight. I will push myself to continue to be active during this time of year, but I'm not naturally as active. So I'll still have like okay, I'm going to the gym on these days a week. But as soon as we start to get the longer sunlight days, I go to the gym on my certain days a week, but then automatically the kids and I are just out all afternoon outside when the weather's nice, and we're just being active, right?
Mhm.
So your body then reflects those behaviors. And it's interesting because when you're saying like the compliments or not, I've gone through phases where I've been like, oh yeah, I guess I'm not like as cut as I was, and does that really matter? And I feel like, same as you're saying, I've had times where I've been really lean, really cut. Everybody notices, but this is what happens to me anyways. But in those phases, my body will look really ripped, but I inevitably am way more broken out during my face. Like I have so many breakouts when I'm really cut and lean,
Mhm.
that I'm like, okay. And quite frankly, I'm like, okay, women's podcast here. I'm like, my boobs totally shrink, especially after
Yeah.
breastfeeding 4 babies. So I'm like, oh, I add a little bit of weight and I'm like, oh, I actually have breasts again.
They're perky again.
So there's like
Hello.
these trade-offs, right? And it's like, do you need those compliments either way? I don't think that you should. I
Yeah.
think that we all enjoy having compliments of some nature.
Yeah.
And if you can find the people that you trust and love the most, like I'm very thankful. my husband is super supportive and he's always like, you're so beautiful and I love your hair and I like your, he's complimented me on all sorts of things. And I just try to really like absorb all of his love and not feel like I need to get it from everyone in every scenario, you
Yeah,
know?
totally.
And
Yeah.
so maybe not everyone has that. Like if you don't have a significant other, like that's okay, right? But it's hearing the compliments from your friends. Like when you have a friend that even just says to you, oh, I really like your hair or like beautiful dress you're wearing today. So many times I find women deflect compliments and it's almost like a protective mechanism.
Yeah.
Like when I say to you, oh, I love that new shirt you got. And you're like, yeah, I was thrift store and da, 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 da. And you give me like this whole explanation or all these excuses. Like I've said to people, I love your hair. And they're like, oh, yeah, it's so frizzed out. I can't believe mine is kind of right now. But the whole point is like,
Don't
what? Why?
deflect it.
Yeah. Why are you not like, oh, thank you? Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes total sense. And I see that a lot too. Um, but I think it comes more from self image. At least it did for me, because like regardless if I was getting compliments or not, I shared this with my clients. It was like a visual, but if you can visualize a pie chart,
Right.
and in my eating disorder, in this time of my life, almost the whole thing, my self-worth was based on my body. So that's why it was so hard to let go of it. But
Right.
you want to be more diverse. You want to have your self image be the relationships that you have, be like your career, and every other aspect of life, like the memories that you make. And a little part of that is your body and how it looks, but it shouldn't be the whole piece of the pie. And that's where I got really stuck, is because my self image was literally just my body.
Right.
So I would do anything and everything to keep it. So at that time in my life, like the fact that my skin was like, I had psoriasis, like horribly, period was missing, like that all didn't even matter to me. I was like, I'm not giving this up, because
Right.
there's so much self-worth in that. But letting that go is a whole other kind of journey, just to kind of diversify your pie chart into other aspects of your life. So if you do get, say your body changes, right? You gain a little bit of more weight. Ripping that away from you will just absolutely ruin you if you put your whole self-worth in the way you look. So you don't want
Yes.
that. Because at some point, like, I'm going to be pregnant, we're going to get old, we're going to get wrinkly, whatever. So if you can't let that happen and can't let your body age and just grow, you're just going to be demolished. Your
Well,
self-confidence is going to be demolished. Yeah.
and you strip yourself of so many rich joys. Like we are
Yeah.
body and soul, and we are meant to live in community,
Mm-hmm.
right? We are meant to have that connection. So I feel like I know women who don't want to have kids just because they compete in bikini bodybuilding and they don't want to give that up. And it's like,
That's so
it's okay.
sad.
Well, it is sad because I'm like, if that's your reason, like I realize there are women who are unable to have children, and that is like, we love you, and it's that's a whole other scenario, right? Like there's things that happen in life that we sometimes on our journey, we as women, we end up being moms, and sometimes we don't, right? And
Yep.
it's not always our choice, but if it's something that you're just not doing because you don't want to wreck your abs, I'm like, that's a sad reason to me anyway.
Oh, same for me too. Just like, again, where's your value? You know what I mean? And like the joy of having a kid, like I am so flippin' excited to be a mom. I
I
think
love
that's
that.
just a part of life that if I were not to, and like I haven't gone through that journey yet, I don't know if I'm going to have any complications with it.
Right.
But if I were to rob myself of that or choose otherwise, just based on like the fact that I'm going to have stretch marks after, I would be just, no, that's not
You
going to
would
happen.
regret it later.
So much. So much.
Well, and this is why I feel like our societal structure right now and the culture, at least within North America, there's an attack on bodies in general. Like we are focusing more on women's health, and it's like an attack on women's bodies and like almost promoting women to not have children and like different things, right? But and it's happening for men too. It's
Mhm.
happening for, everyone. But it's kind of seeing past that there's these narratives that are kind of being pushed. I think that are being like pushed at people in our society that you're like, you don't have to accept that. Like you
Yeah.
can think for yourself. Like
Like
you can use your own brain.
100%. 100%. And I see that too with like careers and stuff. And I feel like as women, at least, society is getting really out of alignment of like what we truly want to our primal core. And
Yes.
fun fact,
We talked
women,
about this on the weekend a bit.
yeah, fun fact, women who don't have kids and don't breastfeed are actually like, I think it's 60% more likely to get breast cancer.
Yeah, it's
So
high.
I feel like that's a very clear sign that maybe this is something that you're supposed to do in your lifetime. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Totally. I agree. And
Yeah.
I feel like it's one of those things where you talked about it. It's like you would love to stay home with your kids.
100%.
I've had opportunities to stay with my kids in certain seasons. Like I've had times
Yeah.
where, and that's okay. It's going to be very fluid, right? It's
Mhm.
like I already used that term earlier, where you're going to have times where both parents are working or one isn't and one is or whatever. But if given the opportunity and you do have that choice, then definitely take time with your kids because it's so innately ingrained in us and we're going against our biological is biological the word I'm looking for?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's the biology of it, the physiology, like everything in us is wired to be nurturing as women. It
Yeah.
really is. And I feel like you can try to override that. And I think that women do.
You
Yeah.
end
It's,
up
it's, it's
miserable though.
fascinating.
Like you just end up not happy. It's like,
Yeah.
but why are we trying to fight it? Like what's so wrong about that? I never understood why it's so wrong to like want to stay home with your kids. First of all, like how much is daycare nowadays? Like why are you going to work just so your wage can pay for your kids' daycare? Why don't you just stay home and take care of your kid? Like I
Yes.
never understood that.
Well, and I think this is where the side that is kind of an attack on men from our society in the
Yeah.
sense of men innately want to be providers and protectors of their home and
Yeah.
their wives and their children. And the whole like toxic feminism is like, well, we don't need men. We're independent women. We don't, you know what I mean? Like, where it's almost removing this partnership and it makes it like, well, I have to secure if you feel you have to secure your position in society as a woman by it has to be your career and only, you and your accomplishments, then
Yeah.
that totally changes it from this like it becomes this independent competitive thing against
Yeah.
men and women instead of a beautiful partnership, in my opinion,
I
anyways.
totally agree with that. And like for myself, what I've always thought is like I don't want to be like completely reliant on my partner to financially support me because like say
Right.
he got hit by a car, say he
Yes.
I don't know cheated, say he hit me and I had to leave. Like I don't want to be paralyzed I don't want to be
Right.
paralyzed and stuck. Like I do want to be self-sufficient, but if I have the luxury for him to
Yes.
provide for the family, please by all means, I
By
would
all
be
means
so
do it.
grateful. Please. We've already had this talk. Like that's the plan. Like I just want
Yes.
to stay home with my kids.
Well, I think too, Haley, it's like I like what you said, and I like that vulnerability of not wanting to feel trapped. And I think the difference in that is as a woman, are you always learning and growing? So
Yeah.
when you, for anything, like
Mhm.
we had this discussion just when I came in from the airport, I was literally, my car was fully snowed in. It was like minus 35. The battery was completely dead. I had to like dig the van out and like open the hood and the hood was stuck because it was frozen down and then my hands are freezing and I'm trying to get at the battery and I don't know how to move this little like hood thing out of the way or whatever. The point is, of course, I call my husband and I'm like, what do I do? And he's like,
Help
there's
me, I'm just a girl.
yes, totally. I'm just a girl moment. And then, quite frankly, he was just getting frustrated. And then I saw like these two guys over there with a truck, and I was like, "Excuse me, can you help me with my vehicle?" Like, do the hair
I'm
flick.
a damsel in distress. Can you help me, please?
Totally. But afterwards, he's like, "Oh, I should have shown you." He's like, "I think I have shown you." He probably has shown me, and it's just like totally glazes over my head.
Yeah.
But my point is, I'm like, in that moment, I was like, I really should have paid better attention or asked for a refresher course to have the independence of I can get my car started in case there wasn't someone coming by.
Yeah.
So, like, that's on me. But, like anything, if you just fully rely on someone else and you're like, well, I don't know how to book my own airline tickets and I don't know how to pay my bills and I don't know where our insurance, like, I think
Yeah.
informing yourself of like, where do we do our banking? Who are we insured with? What are like, in any scenario, knowing how to mostly handle your household. And then I think having a career forces you into that where you
Mhm.
have to do your bookkeeping or you have to do your all your different aspects, right?
Yeah.
But even if you don't have a career, if you intentionally make sure you learn about what's going on with your household, it's very empowering and
Yeah.
it's a good thing, but then it's okay to have the different roles.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. And I like that about what's kind of happening now, which I feel like for my grandma and grandpa's generation, it was very much like there were gender roles and there's nothing wrong with that. But like when my grandpa passed away, like now my grandma doesn't know how to do like half the stuff that he did.
Right.
And
That's
vice
what I
versa.
mean.
Like if that were to happen, like my grandpa wouldn't have known how to cook anything but a hot dog. Like,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, like
So I like that we are kind of meshing the roles and just at least informing ourselves as to how to do something. Not that you should
totally.
do it, but you know how to.
Exactly, exactly. Well, and I feel like our generation, there has been a shift to the catch and release learning too, because like we just YouTube
Mhm.
everything.
Yeah.
In this case, it was so cold. I'm like, I'm not standing out here in -40 watching a flippin' YouTube video of how to do this. But I mean, obviously, we live in a society now where we can learn a lot quickly through the access that we have online, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fascinating though. I feel like all of that, I feel like we've gone through this journey in this conversation, and I'm just thinking about, how this all plays in. It's like the mindset of growth and learning and embracing our failures, our embarrassments, those moments of shame, and reframing how we feel about the fears of the things that we're learning and those uncomfortable situations that we're moving into in any area, whether it's
Mhm.
your career, your workouts, your relationships, because they all play into how you view yourself and how you show up in the world every day.
Yeah. I love that. That's a great summary of this whole thing.
Thanks.
Proud of you.
Thanks. I try to make it all make sense.
You're really good at that.
Sometimes.
I admire that.
Thank you. Oh, this has been a blast. And I'm sure you probably have so much going on today. Do you? Or are you just like, do you ever just chill for the day?
Um, no.
No, I didn't think so.
Well, half days. I'll do half days. Saturdays are like my kind of days off where I'll do a half day of work and then the other half day, Justin and I go do something. And I'm
Because
kind of
you,
like
okay, this is
offline.
something else I learned about you.
Mm.
Tell me all the things you're actually doing.
Like career stuff.
Yeah, right now.
Oh,
You're hustling.
yeah, well, I have my own like business, my personal training. I help my family with their fish processing plant. I do bookkeeping and all of that, manage the office, and then I have a rental property. And yeah, it's it's fun. I'm trying to overload myself before I have kids, and then I'm like, okay, I'm done now.
I'm done now. But this is
Yeah.
funny because we're both, I think this is why when we met, there was like this common understanding between us because I've got the like, I work part time at the chiropractic clinic and then I
Yeah,
have
you've got a lot
Rexy
going on too.
and then we have the podcast and then we
Yeah.
have, kids. And so there, and I coach gymnastics, but so
Yeah.
for both of us, we're telling you like, don't do too much. Here we are doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
But I think the common thread that makes it work is neither of us are afraid to ask for help or
Yes.
hire when we need to hire
Yes.
or it's not just this one woman show. When don't get this view of like, oh, you're saying we don't have to be super women, but then we're watching you and it would appear that you're doing all these things and you are, and it's like,
Looks are
no,
deceiving. Yeah.
yeah,
Looks are
we're
very
working.
deceiving.
Right? We're working with this is why we brought in the relationship component
Yeah.
because we are working with all the other people in our life to make these things happen, to have a positive impact in the world. We're not doing it. We're not doing the one woman show.
No, I definitely would be probably passed out by now if I was just doing this by myself. And likewise, I'm sure with you too. But no, we've got help, and don't be afraid to ask for help. That's one thing I feel like a lot of women, especially, need to learn how to do rather than just doing everything all at once by themselves.
Yeah. And team up. Like I was
Yeah,
doing this podcast by myself and I was like, man, I got a lot going on. I might need to cut this. And then we teamed up and it splits our work in half.
exactly.
Yet we're still accomplishing the goal.
Yeah, and I heard this quote. I believe it's from Dan Martell, but he says, "If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together." So,
Ooh, that's a good point to end on. Mic drop.
yep.
Oh, thank you so much for being here today. We love and appreciate you guys. Make sure you share the show because we just want to help encourage more women, more people, whoever wants to listen to it. And make sure you click the subscribe button. Now's your chance. And in the meantime, be free, feel fresh, and live on fire.